This is the second installment of our mini-series dedicated to the war-torn land of the Cedars, shining a spotlight on a family that profoundly shaped Lebanon's political, social, and military landscape, the Gemayel family. We have already explored the figure of the patriarch, Pierre Gemayel. Today we focus on one of his sons, a man whose life and violent death sparked shockwaves that entered history and the collective imagination, forever influencing the fate of Lebanon and a significant part of the Middle East. Our story begins on a specific date, September 14, 1982. It is a historic day for Lebanon. The newly elected president, though not yet officially sworn in, is delivering a speech at his party's headquarters. His speech is passionate. He is a skilled orator, a man who knows how to command a crowd. And what does he say? Among other things, friends, in a few days a new nation will be born. It will be a strong, secure, and independent Lebanon. I personally will guarantee these promises. But moments later, a deafening explosion shakes the building. Imagine the tremendous blast, the ringing in the ears, debris falling from the ceiling, a thick cloud of dust filling the air, making it hard to breathe. The floor cracks and collapses in places. Screams echo through the hall as panic spreads and people scramble to escape. It takes 2 hours to piece together what has happened, though everyone immediately understands. This was no accident, no gas leak. It was a bomb. Confusion reigns as conflicting reports circulate about the number of casualties. But one question drowns out all the others. Where is Bashir? The Bashir in question is no ordinary man. He is the newly elected president of Lebanon, a member of one of the most powerful families in the Maronite Christian community, a shrewd strategist, and a ruthless military leader. Bashir Gemayel had achieved his father Pierre's dream just days earlier when Lebanon's National Assembly designated him as the successor to Elias Sarkis. His election had not been particularly contested. There were no other candidates, and dissenting voices had been effectively silenced. After 7 years of brutal civil war, still unresolved, Bashir Gemayel had become the youngest head of state in Lebanon's fragile republic during one of its most precarious moments. And yet he had promised to restore order using new methods, both diplomacy and force, the glove and the sword, whatever it took to bring an end to the crisis that had begun in 1975. As we saw in the previous video, the conflict erupted with clashes between rival militias, followed by the Syrian invasion, the showdown with the Palestinians, and 2 separate Israeli interventions. Bashir Gemayel understood that Lebanon needed a decisive shift in domestic politics. Leveraging the country's prolonged state of emergency, he managed to rally allies and even some former adversaries to support his bid for the presidency. The favored son of Pierre Gemayel and leader of the Kataeb party after the death of Tony Frangier, who was assassinated by a Palestinian sniper during the siege of Tel el-Zatar, Bashir was seen more as a military commander than a seasoned politician. He led the party's armed militia in ruthless offensives against the Phalangist's historical enemies, Yasser Arafat's Palestinian factions and Walid Jumblatt's Druze forces. One of the most infamous moments of this struggle was Black Saturday in 1975, when for the first time in modern Lebanese history, the country witnessed massacres driven by ethnic and sectarian divisions. These killings triggered a cycle of revenge, including the massacre of Damour, a coastal town known for producing the sweetest bananas in the world, where Palestinian forces stormed in, seeking retaliation. Men, women, the elderly, and children were slaughtered without mercy. Throughout the Civil War, Bashir Gemayel played a leading role, commanding his forces with brutal efficiency. He was at the forefront of the so-called Battle of the Hotels, a prolonged confrontation against Palestinian and Syrian forces in what was once Beirut's most luxurious hotel district, now turned into a war zone of sniper fire and anti-tank rocket strikes. The facades and rooms of these hotels bore the scars of the fighting, but Bashir was unfazed. His focus was elsewhere, on consolidating the Lebanese front, a coalition of right-wing Maronite and Greek Orthodox political movements created to counter the progressive alliance led by the Jumblatt clan. Within the Lebanese forces, Bashir Gemayel had allies like Shamoun's Tigers and Frangier's Marada Brigade, but also extremists such as the Guardians of the Cedars, a group that saw themselves as modern-day crusaders on a mission to liberate Lebanon from the infidels. This kind of rhetoric highlights that the Lebanese civil war was not a religious war, but an internal conflict within a single ethnic group, the Arabs, fractured into communities with conflicting and often irreconcilable interests. But all of that would change on September 14, 1982. Just 1 week before his scheduled inauguration, Bashir Gemayel attended his final political meeting at the Kataeb headquarters in Beirut. It was an important gathering. He wanted to present his vision for the country to his most loyal supporters, the militants who had stood by him throughout his rise to power. What Bashir didn't know was that he had already been betrayed by one of his own. His assassin was a fellow Maronite, Habib Shartouni. Posing as a Kataeb supporter, Shartouni had gained access to the Phalangist headquarters in the days leading up to the meeting, visiting the building multiple times under the pretense of seeing his sister, who lived in an apartment directly above the conference room. Moving freely inside the compound, he carefully studied the building's layout and identified the perfect location to place a powerful explosive charge, provided to him by Syrian intelligence. Shartouni had long since chosen to betray his own community, aligning himself with Hafez al-Assad's vision of a greater Syria, one that would absorb Lebanon, which he saw as a rebellious province rather than an independent nation. At exactly 4 p.m. on September 14, 1982, Bashir Gemayel entered the Kataeb headquarters. At that same moment, Shartouni, who had left the building shortly before, stepped into a nearby phone booth. He dialed his sister's number and, in a calm voice, told her, "I have a problem at the civil registry office. I need to fill out some forms, but the clerk says I need a family member to confirm my identity. Can you come right away? It's urgent." Unaware that a bomb containing 50 kilograms of plastic explosives had been hidden beneath her bed, his sister left her apartment, walked down the stairs, and got into a taxi. 10 minutes later, Shartouni, who was not at the civil registry office but instead watching from a rooftop 2 blocks away, fixed his eyes on the target. He gripped the detonator. Then, a deafening explosion. A cloud of dust engulfed the building, reducing part of it to rubble. Panic spread across East Beirut. Where is Bashir? Rescue teams rushed to the scene, desperately searching for answers. Rumors spread rapidly. He's injured but managed to walk out of the wreckage on his own. No, he was taken by ambulance to the emergency room with burns on his back. That's not true. He was secretly transported to Haifa in critical condition, but he will survive. For hours, rescuers dug through the debris, but no confirmation came from the hospitals. By late evening, the grim truth emerged. Bashir was dead. His body, unrecognizable, his face obliterated, was among the first to be carried to a nearby church, hastily turned into a makeshift morgue. An Israeli attaché identified him, recognizing the distinctive white gold wedding band on his ring finger. The identification was further confirmed by the discovery of 2 open letters in his jacket pocket, both addressed to him. The following morning, Lebanese Prime Minister Shafik Wazan officially announced Bashir Gemayel's assassination. With the country on the brink, the National Assembly was forced to act quickly. They chose his older brother, Amin Gemayel, a man far more diplomatic in nature, inclined toward dialogue rather than confrontation. As for Habib Shartouni, the man behind the bombing, he was arrested 2 days later. Witnesses had seen him visiting his sister's apartment in the days leading up to the attack, and later spotted him among the onlookers at the scene. Under interrogation, he confessed, not only to planting the bomb, but also to being a member of Hafez al-Assad's Syrian Social Nationalist Party. Shartouni was imprisoned for 8 years in Rumia before being released and handed over to the Syrian army in 1990. It was not until 2017 that the Lebanese Judicial Council sentenced him to death in absentia. The Phalangists, however, waste no time in seeking their own justice. They surround the refugee camps of Sabra and Shatila, now defenseless. The Israelis stationed outside the camps do nothing. Actually, they do something. Their artillery fires illuminating rounds into the night sky, ensuring the Phalangists can see clearly as they storm the camps and unleash a massacre. What follows will go down in history as one of the worst mass killings of civilians since the Vietnam War. The assassination of Bashir Gemayel and the subsequent massacres of Sabra and Shatila forever alter the course of Lebanon's history. The country will never recover, never again come close to stability. From that moment on, there will be only 8 more years of brutal civil war, until the Taif Agreement, until the Maronites' defeat, until Lebanon is left to rebuild under the heavy, suffocating shadow of Syrian influence. Then comes the new millennium, the Arab Spring, another wave of bombings, the assassination of Rafik Hariri, the rise of Hezbollah, which still dominates Lebanon today, the return of General Mikhail Aoun, once an enemy of Syria, then an ally, and eventually President of the Republic, the release of Samir Gemayel, and now a new era of uncertainty. Above it all, the lingering specter of war, a war that it seems refuses to ever truly fade away.